Good morning. Today is November it's almost Thanksgiving. We are nigh, actually. It's the 17th. But we're so close.
I am nigh.
Yes. Doesn't nigh mean near? You are near to me.
Yeah, who says that?
And we are nigh to Thanksgiving. It is the week before, actually. Yeah, because next week is Thanksgiving. Wow. It's my second favorite holiday of all time. So I'm pretty excited. I hope you are as well.
Which is your first?
July
Christmas,
4th. July 4th.
Easter.
July 4th. Because America, I think.
Pagan.
Well, no, but for like a Christian, like Easter and Christmas, it's like a given. I don't even consider those holidays. It's just like this is the best day ever.
Yeah.
However, what are we talking about right now? Thanksgiving. I can't wait. Costco pecan pies are out. So if you'd like to eat a pecan pie, they're out in Costco. So actually, where do you think the best pies are at? Do you think Warwick?
ShopRite?
That's not. No, I don't think so. That's
ShopRite.
That's going to anger a lot of people.
Apple pie.
Like I travel for pie, and I think that ShopRite is not even on the.
$6.99.
Is it?
Yeah. You just cut it up, put it in the freezer, and just eat it at your leisure.
That's true. So hopefully you're enjoying pie. If you have any good pie recommendations, please, we'd love to hear them. So please email us. I'd love to hear it, to be honest. But we are nearing Thanksgiving. We're nearing the end of the year. And I think when it comes to this time of year, we start to reflect. We didn't even do an introduction.
Welcome.
You're listening to the Dear Church podcast. Welcome to the Dear Church podcast, where we exist to fill your ears and your minds with the study of God to see the world as disciples of Christ. My name is Sam Yang. We have with us Pastor Eugene and Chunzak, and we are recording an episode on faithfulness. I think as we are nearing the end of the year, again, it's a good time to reflect and to start thinking about our own lives. And I think, in the past couple episodes, our episodes have been very, very pointed in the sense of like very specific. And I thought, why not have a practical episode where we receive pastoral advice from our pastor? And I thought that might be a good way of spending our Monday mornings today. And, I've been emotional lately. That's not like a confession. No, that's just like I've been reflecting on how fast my kids are growing. That sounds like an extremely thing to say, like an old head, but it's true. I think I'm just thinking about how fast my kids are growing, how fast the year is going by. It's already been 3 months since I was a high school teacher.
I don't think that's an old head way of thinking.
Oh, is it not?
Yeah, I think that's an unk.
What do you think is an old head way of thinking?
I can't wait till they get out of the house.
So
that I can, I don't know.
Paint.
Do something, yeah. Like go running.
It's so mean because
all the old heads run though. They just go jogging.
That's actually true. Running is an old head move, actually. That's true.
No, ladies like to jog. So if you're a dude, we're just saying.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, the year has flown by. Some faster than others. And, the year is almost over. And as we reflect, I thought it might be a good time for us to pause and almost maybe reorient ourselves, if that's the right word, as we live our lives coram Deo, which is, before the face of God. And so I wanted to talk about this morning what it means to be faithful as a Christian. What does it mean to, and I know we're probably going all the way back to basics, building blocks, foundations, Christianity 101 in a sense. But what does it mean to be faithful? What does it mean to be faithful in three aspects? I think the most common areas of life are, in the home, in the workplace, and at church. What does it mean to be a faithful Christian in those three places in that context?
It's a good question.
Really?
Yeah.
I was a little nervous that you wouldn't think it was a good question.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking these days about the topics that you bring up.
It's not about me. This is not. This, AI is not about me. This is not about me.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely talk about that. That's nice. It's a nice topic. Every once in a while, we should reset, um, and maybe not get lost in all the busyness of life. And so let's talk about faithfulness.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've been thinking about it since you brought it up. When did you give out the one sheet? I think you gave it to us like at 11 or 12 midnight last night. So I had a good few hours to think about the topic. But what's interesting that I was thinking about was faith and faithfulness mean different things today. They're similar, but they're a little different, right? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So faith means something and faithful means something else, right?
Faith means something. Faithful means something different. Yes.
Yeah. So isn't that interesting? But they all come from the same origin, which is fide, which is faith, where we get the word faith. And so faith, people now, how would you describe faith or explain to someone what faith is?
Trusting in things unseen, maybe.
It's to believe, right?
Yeah.
What about being faithful?
It almost has a connotation of being loyal or staying true to what you believe in, maybe.
Yeah, so there's that. So faithful means to be loyal.
Yeah.
To have faith is to believe, right?
Yeah.
People will say just have faith. But it does come from, and you hit it in the beginning, from that origin of fide, which is trust. And so to have faith is to actually trust in God. To be faithful is to be trustworthy then. And so there is a trust element in both those. I think we kind of sometimes skip over because we say the word faith so, we're people of faith, right? What does that really mean? So that means I believe in Jesus. What does that mean,
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's the trust in him. And we believe that God is faithful and he's trustworthy. And we also want to be faithful to God. And so that's the ultimate thing, is to be faithful to God. So I think in the rough and tough, you could get lost in the politics. You could get, you could be weaving in and out of dropping your kid off to school, sports, and whatever it is, or, looking for that spouse or trying to find the right time. In the end, you don't want to get lost and lose yourself with our priority, which is to have faith in God and to be faithful to him, right? And so, yeah, maybe it's a good time to just sit back and just think about that, because if you want to be a person of faith and you want to be faithful, I think the first thing that we ought to think about is, have we transgressed the one we are to be faithful to, or the one that we are to have faith in? And so this is something that maybe some of us, and this includes myself, we need to take a step back and think, is there any sin in our lives? Do we need to repent of anything? Do I need to make sure that, maybe in the thick of it, I've lost some of the drive I had for holiness, to be righteous. And it's more about like getting things done, or, making sure that I hit my schedule, make sure all my goals are marked and things of that nature. And that all in the meantime, I haven't been trusting in God. I haven't been faithful to him. And so maybe take that step back and we could start from there.
Is faithful a characteristic that we ascribe to ourselves, or is ascribed to us?
Yeah, I think both, right? So you want to be faithful, and then you could say God is faithful. And then you want to hear from our master, well done, my good and faithful servant.
The reason why I thought about that is because the way that you define faithful is trustworthy. And it almost makes it seem like faithful, because I think oftentimes people say, I want to be faithful, or I want to be faithful. But you never really think about thinking like, oh, that person probably thinks I am faithful. Like, we never think about it being ascribed to you. You just think about doing, being so that you can be faithful, but you never really consider, oh, that person probably, I would hope that they would think that I'm trustworthy, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I see. I think that's where I wanted us to take a step back, because you don't say that about your spouse.
Right.
You don't go,
right.
man, I hope she thinks I'm faithful.
Yeah.
You are like, either you're faithful or you're not.
Yeah.
But when it comes to God, it's always like, I hope I can be faithful.
Yeah.
It's interesting that we won't ever think about doing that even in our earthly relationships. Like, even amongst friends, we're not, we want to be faithful friends. We want to be people that are trustworthy.
Yeah.
But we don't go, to our friends, man, I hope I can remain loyal to you guys. It's just a given. I am loyal to my friends. I'm a faithful friend, right? Because they're my friend. I'm faithful to my wife because she is my wife. And if I break that, it breaks our relationship. But when it comes to God, it's like, man, I hope I could be faithful, And so those are, I think, some of the disconnects that we live in or live with, that maybe we should reset or recheck ourselves, so we're not people like, I sinned, but I'll try again next time.
Right.
Like, people don't have this kind of, wow, I don't want to ever do this, because this is about being faithful to a faithful God. He's so faithful to me. How can I do this to him? And so, starting from there.
Do you think, and I was thinking about this actually pretty recently, how when you read of how God speaks to the prophets concerning Israel and their faithlessness, he always kind of talks about it as an unfaithful wife, that leaves her husband and goes astray. Obviously, that's a very, very harsh picture of what sin looks like. It's true, though. Do you think that's how we should view sin? Like, every time we sin, we're being unfaithful to God, as a wife is unfaithful to her husband? Like, that's how serious we should take it?
I think so. I think maybe more so, if anything. And so some people, so the thing I'm trying to always push back again, especially in these, these latter days, I've been preaching and teaching and talking, is I think we've taken our faith with a laxness,
I think so. Yeah.
And so it's not about the faith anymore. It's about, getting what's ours.
Mm.
It starts from the little, but it is also to the great. It starts from I just need to get my own when it comes to the food in line. I need to get my own when, I want my kid to, do well in, I don't know, soccer. He needs to be number one or whatever it is, right? Or she needs to really do well in lacrosse. And so whatever the case is, and, then they'll get a scholarship, then be set. I got to make sure this happens. I need to get my own. So everybody's a little bit sort of just, you do you, look out for yourself, because no one else is going to do it. But faithfulness and loyalty means I devote myself to the other person. I get it. You need to take care of your family, but if that's the only thing that you're really looking out for, that makes you a bad friend. It makes you a bad partner. Same thing with marriage. The first thing that we talk about in the marriage seminars that I do is I talk about how marriage isn't about you. It's not about this person is there to fulfill your needs, but it's actually quite the opposite. You're there to fulfill this other person's needs. I mean, you did it with me. You did the whole 8 weeks with me too, with your wife. But
yeah,
and then you learn how to serve each other. That it's about serving each other. And so when everybody's just trying to get their own, it's like, this is why I don't like participating in Black Friday. No hate if you do, just a little bit, but I don't like that
Cyber
culture.
Monday,
it's not first come, first serve though.
Oh, I see.
So when people rush the doors, they make sure, they're the first one to get to that TV. And people are like, oh no, it's just competition. Yeah, perhaps it is a zero-sum game when it comes to Black Friday, but at what cost? I think, to be honest, my dignity is worth more. I'm not going to be rushing in and elbowing people out of the way so I could get, a TV for $100 cheaper. And so I just, I don't appreciate that kind of culture of Black Friday. I don't mind if you go shopping for deals. So, my wife will go out on Black Friday to do some Christmas shopping because it's cheaper.
They got some good deals out there.
Yeah. But, for me personally, I don't like going out. But that's the point. The point is, are you there to serve others, or are you there to, just make sure you got your own? And I get it. You've been burned before. People haven't had your back. Why should you have other people's back? And hopefully this past Sunday's sermon, which we haven't heard yet, but this past Sunday's sermon on Matthew 18 will help us deal with that.
So it makes me think, right? Because you kind of mentioned family a little bit. And so maybe that's a perfect segue for us to kind of go into what it means to be a Christian in the home.
Actually, do you mind if I flip it on you and then I'll ask you why? I'll tell you why.
What do you mean flip it? What do you mean?
Could we start with the church first?
Sure.
Then the family and then the workplace? And then we could turn to Colossians chapter 12 to 17. And then for the family, it's 18 Colossians. Did I say Colossians? No. Did I say chapter 12? I'm crazy, man. I meant chapter 3. Colossians chapter 3, verses 12 to 17. And then for the family, it's 18 to 21. And then for the workplace, it's 22 to 25.
It's as if I planned it that way.
It's as if you read Colossians, but flipped the order.
Yeah.
Maybe it's in your subconscious.
Could you imagine? As if.
But let's just go for the first chunk.
Yeah. This is Colossians chapter 3, starting in verse 12. Put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. And above all these put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. And whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him.
And this is what I'm preaching on this coming Sunday, actually, for Thanksgiving this Sunday. But I wanted to talk about the earlier part, especially from verses 12 and that first section. And the first thing that Paul talks about is how we are to deal with one another in the church. So in a sense, how to be faithful to one another in the church. So that's his number one. And then he goes to the family, and then he goes to the workplace, right? So it's interesting because Paul considers the church to such a, great and heavy degree that he would put that. I think sequence is important. And so how we deal with one another in the church will convey to the world how we love and obey Christ. And we went over this in John, right? And so there are some things, I should say, that some people neglect. And this is a good reminder, because we are God's chosen. We're holy and beloved. We're supposed to have compassionate hearts. We're supposed to, put on humility, meekness, patience, bearing with one another. And then he actually qualifies that. He goes, if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other, just as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. It seems as though, people could be like, yeah, I'm very compassionate when it comes to the church. I'm kind, I'm humble, I'm meek even, I let people go first in the line to get food. I'm very meek, I'm patient.
Right.
I bear with one another. And then he qualifies that, saying, if one has a complaint against one another, why would he have to qualify just that part? And I thought about that. And I think the longer we have fellowship with one another, there is a propensity to hate the person. Yeah, I mean, I'm speaking for myself
they're getting
here.
Annoying? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I'm speaking for myself here, but the longer I have to put up, let's say, with my kid and her, her stubborn attitude, the less patient I'll get, right? But if it's not my kid, I don't get upset. It's not my kid. You know, I remember your kid asked me if she could have gummy bears.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, you could have gummy bears. You have to ask your mom. And then your wife was maybe just 7 feet, 10 feet away from us. And then she turns around, looks at your wife, and then she turns back to me and she said yes. Right. And then I look at Angela. Angela's like, what? What did you say? Right?
This is my life.
No, but see, for me, that didn't do anything where I was like impatient or I ran out of patience.
Yeah.
I thought it was very cute. And, I just said, no, you still have to ask your mom. I was very patient. Yeah. I think it's easier to be patient for me. Again, this is anecdotal, to be patient with another kid. Now my kid comes, says, can I have a gummy bear? I'm going to be like, this kid doesn't eat her food and ask for gummy bears. I'm not going to give you one gummy bear. In fact, you're not going to have gummy bears for the rest of the day or whatever it is. So the patience kind of dries up. Now I'm talking about when we deal with each other in the church. I think, and this may be just me, and if it's you, then, I'm glad it resonates. But the longer we spend time with people, the more annoyed we can get with one another. The more we could get hurt by what the other person said.
Yeah.
Because the more we hang out, obviously people are, there's going to be a slip of the tongue and, people might say things that they didn't mean, or it was a little overboard and things like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You might say something really inappropriate in a youth group gathering, for example, right? And then what happens? People who have, known you for a while could get very upset, right? Because, you keep on, you keep on towing the line, and that's it. That's gone too far. Like, this is just a random example. That my point is, Paul. I think Paul knows, and then he says, you have to forgive each other. He's like encouraging people to forgive each other. I think the longer you get to know people, the more you have to remind each other that you have to forgive each other. Because the closer you get, and I think I talked about the hedgehog's dilemma like many years ago on this podcast, but the closer you get, the more chances of you guys pricking each other is there. That's the hedgehog's dilemma, right?
Can I ask you something real quick?
Yeah.
About forgiving each other? I have heard of a case where someone went up to another person and they said, hey, I forgive you for this. But the person never asked for forgiveness. The person didn't even know they wronged that other person. What does it mean to forgive one another? Like, because I could say, like, Chunseok wronged me, let's say, right? Do I have to tell him that he wronged me to forgive him? Or is it more of like you know what? I'm just going to forget it. It's okay. It's not that big of a deal. Or do I have to actively go and be like, hey, by the way, you did this, and this hurt me, and so I'm going to forgive you? Is that like, do I have to clear the air that way? What does it mean forgive each other?
Yeah, I think that's the point. I think we get annoyed at one another. The person it literally might be like what you described. Person might come up to you and say, hey, I forgive you for this. And you're like, get out of my face. Like, what are you talking about? I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
And then so the other person's now, like, all right. But then maybe they even said it like in a passive aggressive way. Hey, I forgive you.
Like, don't do it again.
Yeah, no, I forgive you. I'm such a good person.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that person isn't doing the first part, verse 13, which is bearing with one another. Mm-hmm. Like every little thing, they think it's an offense to them.
Yeah.
That's the point. The point is, the closer we get to one another, we're going to prick each other at times. And you have to bear with one another. You have to forgive each other. So let's say in your case, this person comes up and says, hey, I forgive you. And it's like very passive aggressive. It's said in a way where it's not really, genuine. They're just trying to show you like they're a good person and you did this wrong. Make sure you know you did this wrong.
Yeah, like even though you didn't apologize, I still forgive you anyway, that kind of thing.
If it comes to you, if you read this, you would have to put on. So the point is, you would have to say, all right, so in one sense, I need to bear with this person.
Yeah.
I need to have patience with this person. Am I in a place of teaching? Am I in a place where I can communicate with this person Or is this person not going to be able to hear?
Right.
And those are all things that you would think about.
Yeah.
As a senior pastor, I'll be honest, not everybody in church is okay with me all the time. They're not. Some people don't like the decisions I make. Some people have a wrong view of some of the things that happen in church. I remember one time someone said, it looks like Pastor Eugene makes all the decisions in this entire church, and everybody just, is our yes men. And the elders were so upset because they took offense at that.
Yeah.
Because if you sat in any of our session meetings, it's nothing like that. In fact, I don't bring up motions. I have other people bring up motions, and then everybody votes on it. So I try not to even bring up motions. Like if I want to do something, I'll just, wait for someone else to do it unless it's really important. And then, maybe I'll ask like Pastor Paul to bring up the motion, but like those are things that I think about. But in the end, people, I think that's a good thing to, is kind of showing that the session is unified. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of, hot debates at times. There's a lot of back and forth. Not rarely, but sometimes there was even yelling, things like that, right? And so these are things that happen. But in the end, the session, I believe, we're all pretty close because we got to bear with one another, and we have to, treat each other with love and this kind of forgiveness when, things happen. But imagine that didn't happen. And you have like a group of elders making decisions about the church, and the whole time they're just trying to undercut one another. That would be a terrible session, and subsequently it would be a terrible church. But I don't see why people can't see that for the entire church. I get it; the session is a big part, but it's true for every other part of the church. Like even if you're not, quote unquote, a leader of the church, you're still a minister. You're still called to as a royal priesthood. You still have this calling upon your life. So I hope that you can forgive each other. So if someone does that to you, I think it would be prudent for you to kind of see how you can minister to the person first.
So this is what it means to be faithful to or in the church, in our interrelationships with other members, whether you're a deacon or elder or member. Just that's how it means. That's what it means to be faithful.
Yeah, I think so. I think we need to really consider each other deeply as brothers and sisters in Christ. Would you do that to your own brother or your own sister? And if not, then how could you do that to a brother in Christ or a sister in Christ who's actually closer to Christ than maybe even your own flesh and blood, right? And so it really depends on, what you're doing in church, how you deal with people. And so I think if you don't forgive, I think if you can't let it go, you're going to not just ruin yourself, you're going to ruin the church. So, I hope people take that to heart. Forgive each other. I get it. Sometimes the person's just annoying and you just can't hang with them. But it could also mean maybe you're not as patient and magnanimous as you thought you were. Maybe you just need to stretch yourself a little bit more. Maybe you let things get to you more easily than you thought. Maybe you're not as patient as you think. And so those are things that maybe we could consider. I think that's especially true when you have like a kid your age, right? Like maybe I am not as patient as I thought. I think that all the time. Maybe I'm not as patient as I thought. When you're like running 5 minutes late and your kid's like, I don't want to get dressed because I want to eat this cookie.
Right.
Yeah. Which actually happened.
I think that's interesting because the way that people would oftentimes think about faithfulness in the church or being faithful to the church, being faithful in the church is, I think, just service. That's how people would think about it, right? Just being faithful in serving, being faithful in being a part of the community, being a useful part of the community. People would just think serving, but you've taken it to a different place where it's not just serving, but you're considering the other person and you are forgiving.
Yeah, I mean, if we continue on, it's forgiving each other as the Lord has forgiven you. So he puts this additional qualifier to the qualifier. Think about how the Lord has forgiven you. That's how you're supposed to forgive one another. That's a very, very heavy thing. He says you also must forgive. There's the imperative there. And then, in verse 14, he talks about love binding everything in harmony.
Yeah.
In the end, you want harmony with people. You want to have peace with one another. Eirene, right? You want that kind of peace. You want shalom, because God has given us that eirene, that shalom. We are to have that kind of peace and harmony with one another. I hope that, people take that to heart. When you're in the church, you want that perfect harmony. And it does mean, and this is why, I think I've said it before, sometimes you got to eat it. I get it. Some people won't like you. People don't like me. But, when it comes to the church members, I don't care about my haters. I don't say that. If you've never heard me say that about church members, if a church member actually hates me, it drives me to pray for them. Maybe I won't talk to them and they'll come back to me and, well, I wish you would have reached out, blah, blah, blah. But my first thing is I want to pray for them. Maybe I won't handle it exactly the way they want, the way they want to be loved.
Right.
But at the same time, I know what I ought to do, which is to put on love. And then it continues on. You're supposed to teach, admonish in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, right? You're supposed to do all these things so that we can encourage one another. If you go back to Hebrews chapter 10, to stir one another up to love and good works. So there are all these admonishments that the Bible gives us when it comes to loving one another, because it's such an important part of the Christian life. And I talked about 1 Corinthians 13 or 12 even, about every member being a very special and intricate part of the body, integral part of the body. And also for, chapter 13, which talks about what love is. And it's talking about the church. So all these letters almost all have to do with how to deal with one another in the church, because it's so important that the church members love one another, because this is what Christ taught us. In John 14, a new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you. That's a big one. So I think Paul knew that. And this is what he continues to get at. I don't know. Maybe if you're listening and you're thinking, I got it down. I love one another perfectly as Christ has loved me. Then good, man. I'm glad you're in the church. But I think for the most part, people might be like, yeah, I could use some work on loving each other. And then so the Bible does give us some good, base ground level admonishments, imperatives, and some, guidelines and instructions.
I mean, this reminds me of when we passed the peace during service. I remember, us talking about the fact that you're not just, giving the peace sign, or you're not just saying, hey, it's not just greeting time. You're literally passing the peace of Christ to one another as a unified body of Christ. And so it reminds me of that. And so I guess maybe even application could be, if you're listening to this and there are people that you need to reconcile with, there are people that you need to bear with, people that you need to forgive. I think praying for that person would be a great application, even thinking about this as we apply Colossians chapter 3. Yeah.
I think that's one of the number one things you could do for the other person. If they come into mind, maybe they hate you. Yeah, I got a lot of haters.
I don't think I have a single hater, to be honest with you.
I can name a few right off the bat.
I think I'm beloved.
That's also true. You are beloved. So you're extremely loved and you're extremely hated. There's no middle. No one looks at you and be like, either they hate you or they love you.
It's true. I think it's important.
I think it's because you have the savior complex.
No. I'm no savior.
Messiah complex.
I need saving. You know what I mean?
I don't know what you mean. Explain that. Explain that.
No, because total depravity and stuff.
Oh, so generally you need saving.
No, very specifically like for my eternal salvation. No, I think this is helpful though, because again, people will always think being faithful in church is serving, but there is the unity aspect, the peace aspect, us being one body. If we're constantly hating each other and not forgiving one another, we can't. How are we one body? How can we do that? So this is a good reminder for us to even specifically like forgive one another and to pray and to bear with one another. Even if people get annoying, even if I get annoyed with Shinzuk, for me to bear with him. He does remind me of a bear though, but to forgive and to bear and to pray for one another. That's helpful. Moving on to the workplace.
No, it's family.
Sorry, family.
18 to 21.
Moving on to the family place. That's a show. No, it's Family Guy. This is verse 18. Wives, submit to your husbands as is fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. Fathers, do not provoke your children, lest they become discouraged.
Yeah, so there are, those three dimensions of relationship in the family that we see. Wives are to be submitting to their husbands, and it has this qualifier, as it is fitting in the Lord.
Yeah,
so I really like the qualifier. So what does it mean to submit? It's as it would be fitting to the Lord. So I would think that you should submit as much as you can because it is proper to the Lord, but at the same time, you should submit in a way that is proper to the Lord. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And so submission is something that Paul had to say. I think if it came naturally, you don't really have to say it.
Yeah.
So this is something that we ought to continue to teach in our churches. The next, husbands, you have to love your wives. And there's a qualifier. It's, love is agape. And it says, do not be harsh with them. And the translation is good, but if you look at the Greek, it means something more like, don't make them bitter, don't make them sour. So the husbands loving their wives and not treating them in a way where it would make the wife sour or bitter is your job. It's your duty to do that. And so that could be a lot of things. It could be listening better. It could be leading them more gently. It could be teaching them more. It could be involving them. I know a lot of couples, and their biggest issue is communication. Sometimes, it's not a matter of even how much they talk. It's about the quality of the talk. So
I see.
they may talk a lot and might not. They still won't be satisfied because it's not talk that builds up people. Maybe they'll gossip, together, like gossipers or slanderers. That's still not good talk, right? So you're not being a good husband if you do that.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
On that? So I completely agree. There are people that slander and gossip as a household. But what if someone were to say, well, aren't I supposed to share everything with my wife? Aren't I supposed to share everything with my husband? Why would I hide anything from my husband? And so it's not gossiping. It's just sharing what I heard or sharing what I know or sharing what I think. Is it okay to gossip with your wife?
No, it's not. Yeah. Gossip goes down to, it's like a tasty morsel. It goes down to the deepest part of your soul. It's in Proverbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't share everything with your wife. I don't know where people got that.
But people will say that like they'll say that I need to talk to my wife about everything, and they'll use that as an avenue to talk badly about people.
Is that, maybe it's the age that we live in, that we think that communication means I share everything with my wife. That's not true. I don't even know in what reality that could ever be good. It's really to share the heart with one another. And if it's like if you're going to share something that will harm her, like you're not protecting her, I get it. Like in the past, people haven't shared enough, and maybe in a way of correction, you'd rather err on the side of overcorrection.
Right.
Overcorrection is bad still. There are things to share with your wife that's proper and good that will build her. And there are things that you shouldn't share, that you should shoulder, you should carry. And that's something, maybe you need to have a conversation with your wife about that. Hey, honey, I don't know what you call her. Hey,
honey is like a
babe. I think people call each other babe.
Honey
hey,
is
babe.
honey is like a post
Yeah, I don't know anybody that calls their wife
I know too.
like
Honey.
but people usually say something more intimate. And
What
so
about bro? People say bro these days.
I think you call your wife Angel?
No.
No. You say babe?
I don't say it all the time. Her name is Angela, so I just say Angela.
Do you say Angela, babe?
Oh,
Babe Angela?
Angela. Ugh. I can't do that one.
Babe Jilla? Okay.
I can't do that one.
Yeah, there's some things that men should shoulder. I don't see how this is a novel concept. There's some things that I shoulder that my wife doesn't know. And so there's some things that she does know. She knows a lot of things. Trust me, she knows a lot of things, but she doesn't know everything. And I don't get where this came from, where we have to share everything that happened, every detail. That makes us a good couple.
Like even what you hear, like,
Yeah.
this is what I heard about this
So
person.
I don't share things that would harm her. I don't share things that would, or I try not to at least, that would detract from her growth, that would make her bitter. Maybe there are some things that she needs to watch out for. So I'll share that in the heart of saying, you got to watch out for this. So if case in point, if slander came your way or some juicy gossip came your way and you felt like maybe my wife heard about this, you could say, I heard this gossip. Maybe you heard it too, but I just want to tell you this is gossip. And this is not something that I condone sharing or even like putting weight on because it's gossip, right? So maybe there are some cases where you could talk about that.
It's one of my favorite ways that people excuse gossiping. It's kind of like when people say, "Oh, can I ask prayer for this person?" and they gossip. That's my second favorite way that people gossip without saying that they're gossiping.
I think you've been hurt a lot.
No, I'm not. I'm unhurtable.
You mean immovable? You were saying that you're immortal.
I didn't say any of those things. But people do gossip and they use these excuses to gossip.
So let me get back to verse 19. Do not be harsh. So it means don't do things that would make them sour or bitter. So you need to build your wife up. And so that's what it is. Both, you can see the similarities. Both are building each other up, but they have a different role. They have a different place from where they build each other up. And so those are the two things, and we could stay on this more if you'd like, but if I were to move on, it's children obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord.
Yeah.
And so this is, the fifth commandment, the first commandment to come with a promise.
Yep.
If you're a child that does not honor your father and mother, this is a grave sin against the Lord. These are your first authority figures, and the way you treat your first authority figures show how you will treat God. And so, how do you honor your father? How do you honor your mother? Those are really big questions for children to always ask. I don't care what age they are or you are. You could be 3 or you could be 30. But you need to honor your father and mother properly. And so it says, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord.
Yeah.
So obviously he's talking about little children here and he's instructing them, but this goes to the bigger understanding of children honoring your father and mother.
What about like older people?
I still think you should honor them. But it doesn't matter where they are.
It looks a little different though, no?
Yeah, I would say that.
So I think one question that people can think of is, and maybe this is a very, very unique situation, but there may be times where these things conflict, meaning 18, 19, 20 conflicts. There may be times where, and this is, I don't know, this is just so specific, but the reason why I'm asking this is because I have been asked this before in terms of like, what if, you honoring your parents is discouraging to your wife? Like, I know that's a silly thing to say, but there are instances where that kind of stuff happens where it seems like they're conflicting. And so the question that you have to ask is, who do I choose? My mom, my dad, or my wife, or my child? Like, there's people that may go through something like this.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
I still think you should honor your father and mother, but you need to be able to make sure that you're not harsh with your wife. You have to, it's not a balancing act.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. People think it's, how do I balance this?
Right.
It's about making sure you do all that. You have to check all the boxes. So, asking for wisdom is key. I think that was in the section prior. You need to be wise in what you do. And so, admonishing one another in all wisdom.
Yep.
And so you need to be wise in your handling. Obviously, if there's something completely contradicting each other, let's say your wife says one thing and then your parents say something completely the opposite. You're in a bind, but you still have to do all those things. You can't be harsh with your wife, can't make her bitter, and you have to honor and obey your parents. You got to do both. And so, I think it would be naive to think that you won't go into a time like that. There'll always be times like that. No one's perfect. And you grew up in different households. Your wife will think one way, and your parents obviously didn't grow up with your wife's household, so they won't think the same way. And so, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, how can I honor them well, while making sure that I lead my wife well? And so those are things that I think if you're going to have a conversation, you should talk about that with your wife instead of gossip, slander, instead of, things that you shoot the breeze with and you think you have you're so close with your wife because you just talked about nothing. Talk about deeper things like, how can I honor my father and mother? How can I honor your father and mother? How can I do these things? And then you'll see your wife will start to, come up with her own ways of maybe this will work, maybe that'll work. And then you'll come up with new ways of maybe honoring your in-laws. And then I think that would be a more beautiful way to approach this rather than thinking, all right, what's first? I got to make this priority. Yeah, I think if push came to shove and then no one's budging, then yeah, you're going to have to make that decision. But I think people make that decision way too quickly. Obviously, you have to side with your wife, by the way. But in the end, I think people come to that way too quickly instead of seeing if wisdom would dictate, oh, there might be another option.
Yeah. Can I ask you a similar question?
Sure.
Is there ever a situation where you being faithful at the church is going to conflict with you being faithful to your family? In the sense of,
oh.
And I know that we talked about being faithful in church, being faithful to the members of the church in our humility, in our peacemaking, in our prayers. But there is still an aspect of being faithful at church in serving the church, right? Is there ever a time where serving the church will be going against you being faithful, you being a good dad, you being a good mom in the home? And if that was ever the case, how do you figure that out? And the reason why I ask this is because a lot of our church members are very, very busy people in the sense of work takes a lot of time, family life takes a lot of time, and church also may take time. And I think because we live in an area that's so busy where, we're always in a time crunch, it almost might feel like your church work and your church life and your role as a deacon, your role as an elder, your role as a member, faithful member, like small group member, all these different things, you have an X amount of time. And at the same time, you're still a dad, you're still a mom, you're still a member of your family. And it seems like they're conflicting against each other sometimes.
Yeah.
How
absolutely.
do you handle that?
Absolutely. I think that's a natural thing that people go through seasons in life.
Yeah.
And, you just got to make sure that you prioritize correctly, you manage your time well. There are things that you could do better, little improvements here and there. But if you're talking about overall, like if someone's overcommitted to something secular and they can't even commit to the church, that's an issue.
Yeah.
But if you're committed to the church and let's say your wife says, I disagree, you need to spend more time with your kids, then that's an issue too. You have to, make sure that you are managing your household well. And so, especially if you're a leader, right? Otherwise you get disqualified.
Right.
So if your wife thinks that you're not spending enough time with the kids, then you should take that seriously. Either she's wrong, but, she still feels this way, or she's right and you need to change. Either way, you have to lead your wife well, right? So either way, you got to get back, sometimes take a pause and say, oh, I got to get my household affairs in order. But you put them in order so that you can, right?
Right.
Order so that you can what, right? And so everybody's like, well, I want to do everything. I want to be able to, go to every, I don't know. What if a kid is in 6 sports teams and
Athletic kid?
Yeah, very athletic kid. And, you just want to let her try everything. And then, she doesn't have time for church and things like that. You will have to make a decision. I think most parents actually in our church that go through this say, okay, you could try the 6 things for a little bit, but you're going to have to choose 1 or 2 in the end, right? You could try it, but you have to. So that's what parents have been telling me that's what they do. There is this older and I believe wiser couple in our church now. Their children are leaders in our church, but I ask them, how did you raise your kids so well? What are some of the things, because they're both very successful, what are some of the things that, like, rules or some kind of, guidelines that you gave them? They just told me straight up, we said, you get to pick one thing. That's it. And it's either sports or music.
Oh.
Yeah. You can't do both. And if it's sports, you could only play a team sport. No tennis, no ping pong, nothing like that, right?
Ping pong?
My cousin was like a ping pong like champion. He traveled the world playing ping pong, which is funny.
Should I have done that?
I don't think so. Yeah, you have to have talent, bro.
Wait, ping pong is just you go, like you just go quick.
Yep, exactly. But so they said, this is an anecdotal example, but they said, you can only play a team sport. They wanted if they're going to play sports, they wanted their kids to know how to play in a team.
Yeah.
So no tennis for them. And things like that. Look, if you're teaching your kid tennis, all the more power to you. I'm telling you, this is what they were thinking, but there was reason behind it. The reason behind it is a teacher to the kids. So they taught their kids, wisdom by doing the things that they did, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they said, if you're going to do this, you're going to do one thing and you're going to be excellent at that one thing. In fact, I do believe the older one was like all-state or something. He still plays in our basketball league, and even as an old man, he drops like 40 points at a time or something like that. But, those are things that I do think about. You could disagree, but I'm telling you, each family has their reasoning on why they're going to do certain things, and you want to be able to convey that to your wife, to your children. You want to be able to communicate that to them because that's teaching them, right?
The younger one, not so much.
What's the younger one?
Athletics.
No, the younger one.
No, he obviously chose music.
No, I think the younger one was the same. I think the younger one was the same, but
no, the reason why I say that is because the younger one listens to this podcast. No,
he doesn't.
He does.
He does?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The younger one, not so much. No. He's our church's slasher. Not like a knife slasher, but to the rim. To the rim.
Yeah.
And there's no one that can get to the rim better than he can. Or he did. He did.
On a good day, I could do it.
You only go left.
Wait, you can't say that in public. People don't know that.
People that watch you play for 30 seconds will know that. Anyway, it's all in good fun. But yeah, the things that I take to heart and I try to listen to is I try to get the wisdom. It doesn't mean that I'll have the same rule for my family. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying everyone should have this rule, but I want to gain the wisdom from these really wise people. And so I hope that you do too. Mm-hmm. I hope that you learn about, making sure that if you're going to be excellent, but no one can be excellent in 8 things. You're going to be excellent in 1.
Yeah.
If anything. So be good at that one. Focus on one, If you really think sports is a big thing for your kid, then have them focus on the one. but also know in all likelihood, this person's chance of becoming a professional athlete is 0.002%. And even in that 0.002%, the likelihood that he'll be top or she'll be top is even more minuscule.
Yeah.
That they'll make money is even more minuscule. I was reading this article by a pro golfer who actually goes on tours, right? So he's good enough to make it to the tours. But he was sharing about, unless you're in like the top 10, you either break even or you lose money. It's tens of thousands of dollars to travel,
right,
to get a hotel, because you can't just pick like a Holiday Inn. You got to stay at the hotel that they're staying in and things like that, right? And you got to fly to wherever they're going. So you have to invest in a lot of money. So when you don't have money, your family's putting that up for you.
Yep.
So there's debt involved. If you have a wife and kids, they have to travel with you. So that's extra money. And then let's say you don't make it top 10, you make like 15 grand, but your whole trip cost you 20. So now you're down 5.
Right.
So even these pro tour athletes, some of them don't make money. And what they're doing is they do it, they say for the love of the game, but at the same time, they're hoping they can make like top 20 so that they can make a little money on the side.
Yeah.
But some of them make less than you. That's the point. They make less than you, Sam. And they're there. So the chances of your kid becoming that great is very slim. And so how much are you pouring it into? Do you really believe that your kid has the chops to be like the next Scotty Scheffler? And if in your heart of hearts you're like, nah, then maybe they could be All-State. I don't know.
Yeah.
Get a scholarship to college, and then you don't have to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. That's good too. I mentioned lacrosse because I have a friend who had a daughter who was captain of her lacrosse team and got into, I believe, Duke with a lacrosse scholarship. And she doesn't play lacrosse now.
I think a good way of thinking about it is play your sport. Don't let your sport play you.
How long have you been holding on to that one? Be honest.
I don't normally talk highly of myself. I self-degradate or whatever it's called.
Self-deprecate. Self-degradate is like self-segregate.
All right, I think we need to move on. I don't know about that one.
Yeah. And so, I hope that people, you pray for wisdom. Pray for wisdom as parents. You don't want to provoke your children, which is verse 22 now, lest they become discouraged. In the end, and that's an instruction to the father. And I think I really see the deep wisdom in that. I put up a little funny Instagram story a few weeks ago about, the one time you raised your voice at your daughter and she's like a mess. She's crying. Yeah. And then the 5 millionth time the mom scolded the daughter and she's like dancing. Yeah. Yeah. It's like kind of true for our family too. Like mom scolds our daughter. She's just like, saying jokes the next like 2 seconds later. But if I scold my daughter, man, she holds it for a very long time. So in the end, I do think that fathers hold this weight where you can provoke them to discouragement. So be very careful, because I think that will have to do with your faith. They'll look at you and they'll see this person is not really living up to the faith that he professes, right? He's always anxious. He's always angry. He's not patient. He's not bearing. So the kids actually see that. So fathers especially, I think, should take care in not provoking their children.
Yeah. This is verse 22 and on. Bondservants, obey in everything those who are your earthly masters, not by way of eye service as people pleasers, but with sincerity of heart, fearing the Lord. Whatever you do, work heartily, not heartily, but heartily, as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. For the wrongdoer will be paid back for the wrong he has done, and there is no partiality.
Yeah, verse 25 is a real hope giver. It really solidifies why we should, the assurance of why we should continue to work as hard as we can. because in the end, God will show no partiality. Justice will be done. If you work hard and you don't get paid, God will make sure that justice is done because he is a just God. But at the same time, you are to work as you would for the Lord.
Yeah.
And so bondservants here is translated from the word doulos, which we understand as slaves. But slaves now, like chattel slaves, are different from the doulos or the bondservants that we saw,
Yeah.
in Paul's time when he's writing this. And so, we can take this as workers because you are under contract. You are under obligation, just like the bond servants were back in the day when you sign a contract, right? And so you don't do it just to be people pleasers. You don't do it just to do the bare minimum. You work as you would work for the Lord. That's how you are a faithful worker. You work as you would, as you would for Jesus Christ.
I think that's a good reminder because oftentimes people, again, like to separate church and work. I remember a long time ago, I was trying to get an internship at a law firm. This is like when I was first going into college. And I remember I went to a law firm that I knew, in which I knew there was one of the partners was going to my church, was attending the church that I was attending. And I remember, going into the office, interviewing, and like kind of talking with them. And then the interviewer said, yeah, don't be surprised if, the partners curse at you, if they yell at you. We just need to win the case. That's why. And then he said, I know that at church they might act a certain way, but this is work. And I remember thinking, what are you talking about? As if it's so okay and normal that you curse at work. And as long as the product gets out, you just have to do whatever you can to get the product out. And your faith doesn't even matter at work because, hey, this is work. This is not faith. This is work time. And I remember I never went back. And I was like, that is the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. But I think a lot of people think this way, though. At work, it's work you versus church is church you. And you have to keep the two separate because one is product-based, the other is faith-based. And so I think this is a good reminder for us that even in our work, we are working for the Lord.
Yeah, I think probably the disconnect between understanding that the Lord is Lord over all and not just over your church work is probably there. And so even when you're working, you got the Lord over you. You're working for Jesus.
Yeah.
I tell some stories about when I used to work because I worked for 10 years before going into the ministry. Usually people are smarter than me, so they go straight to seminary after college. But I didn't do that. Not as smart as Junzug and Sam.
I didn't go straight.
It took me 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so usually people work for maybe a year or two or three. But yeah, I think Pastor Paul just went straight to seminary, to be honest.
He got ordained in his 20s.
Yeah. Oh, he was a teacher for a little bit,
but
right?
But he's been an ordained minister for over 20 years because he's 50 now. And he's been ordained for over 20 years. He's been ordained for a very long, he's been in the ministry for a long time.
Yeah, he was.
Veteran.
He's maybe double the time he was ordained as I was, because I remember someone sent me a picture saying, happy 10th anniversary. I was like, what are you talking about? And this past Reformation Sunday was the 10th anniversary of my ordination.
Oh.
I didn't even remember. Yeah, but it was. I got ordained in 2015. And so someone sent me a picture of when I got ordained because they were there. I was really thankful for it. But 10 years ago, the phone cameras weren't so great, so the quality wasn't that good. But so when I was working, I remember people knew I was a Christian, and I remember doing things, and I knew people looked at me to see how I would act because I professed I was a man of faith.
Yeah.
And so everybody cursed on the trading floor. Everybody cursed on the trading floor. I didn't curse. But the one time I did, everybody remembered that. The one time I punch a wall and I drop a bomb, that's what people remember. And I say it kind of jokingly now, but that's a true story actually. I never used to curse. People used to be like, "Man, what book are you reading, man?" And then I'd be like showing him the book. Look at this guy reading a Christian book, right? And so that's who they saw me as. Yeah. And so when they would play, is it craps? I forgot what it was. They would, when they bet money and throw the dice against the wall. Is it just dice?
Isn't it called? I think it's called dice.
Dice. Yeah. Street craps, right?
Street craps?
Shooting craps.
Oh.
But they would do that on the side. If it was a little slow, they would just gamble on the side, right. Things like that. And they wouldn't invite me to that stuff, right? Uh-huh. Because these, they just wanted to make money and things like that. Maybe in my 3 years, I cursed one time, but I bet that's what they remember. But, they curse like 100 times a day, maybe more. No one remembers. But when you're out there and you say you're a Christian, you are a testament to Christ. That's 100% true. So when you're working, you have to work as if you're serving Christ because you are. And the world knows it. The world actually knows it. And people came up to me after. There's more stories I could tell you about me being a Christian and people knowing it in the workplace. And some of the things I did weren't very savory. Again, I was like 24. I don't know. I was pretty young back then. I remember someone was in a terminal next to me. He made a bad trade and he screamed out Jesus Christ. So I turned to him and I said yes. And he goes, "Oh no, not you, the other one." And then he never said Jesus Christ again. But obviously, I don't recommend doing that, right? Yeah. But I don't recommend you saying that you're Jesus Christ. But I mean, I still joke around a lot too. So if you know me, that's not a joke that, you'd be like, "Oh, that's way, beyond what, that he would do." No, that's something I would do even now, perhaps. But people remember you for, your interactions and, not just because you're a pastor. Again, I was in the workforce for 10 years before I became a pastor. People knew me as a Christian, though. So they saw how I interacted. They saw how I spoke. They saw how I dealt with each other. And I could either really encourage them or discourage them.
Yeah.
So I hope people see that. If you're a Christian and you're in the workplace, you are to serve in that workplace as you're serving Christ. And you are a testimony of Christ to the world.
So being faithful as a Christian in the workplace is being faithful to God in the workplace.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I hope people do well, and I hope people can be encouraged by your testimony in your workplace.
Yeah, I think these are a great questions to kind of consider, and as you just kind of explained for us, what it means to be faithful in the church, what it means to be faithful in the home, and last but not least, what it means to be faithful in the workplace. I think it's a good place for us to think about, are we doing these things? Are we really faithful in the church, in the home, at the workplace? And if not, this is something that we need to reflect on and repent of and turn to God and be faithful to Him in all three aspects and areas of our lives. And so I think this is helpful for us, Pastor Eugene. Thank you. That was a good close. I'm proud of myself with that one.
Junzo wasn't even listening. He's like, it's the same old stuff.
Junzo's been grinding. I could tell. So thank you for that, Pastor Eugene. And I thought we would do one current event if that's okay with you.
That is okay.
This is from the Telegraph. Good day is what they say over there, I think. That's what they say, right?
Do they say that?
Good morning.
No, I think they say
what do they say?
ELO.
ELO? Oh,
got him. That was too easy.
That's good. This is the UK. I never knew the difference between Britain and UK.
Really?
Could you unravel that mystery for me?
Yeah. There's Britain and there's the United Kingdom.
But
which holds Britain,
Scotland,
Ireland,
Wales, Northern
Yeah.
in Wales. Wait, but what's the difference between Great Britain and England? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Is it like saying USA, US, and America?
No. I think they're different. But I think people just say the UK because they're the United Kingdom.
All right, so this is from the UK all the way across the pond here. And the title is Trans Women's Milk as Good as Breast.
And this is a hard title to say.
The title is Trans Women's Milk as Good as Breast Milk, says NHS Trust. Drug-induced chest feeding liquid comparable to that from mothers when it comes to baby nourishment, claim hospitals. I thought this is extremely interesting. And I think you might think, why would you ever even consider a male person breastfeeding? Like, why would they even try? Well, they take a pill, which then I think produces milk. What is it? For a person born male to breastfeed, they must develop milk-producing glands by the hormone progestin. And so this is a drug that they can take to then produce milk. And you might wonder, why would you ever do that? Well, apparently there's a study that says that milk produced by humans is always better than formula. It's from the WHO, the World Health Organization. They said in 1977 that there's overwhelming evidence that human milk is better for a baby than formula milk. And therefore, now we have chest feeding. Your thoughts on this, Pastor Eugene?
Yeah, they don't produce breast milk. I'm so sorry. I think that's the claim that they're saying, that they produce breast milk. And because of this study, now you have like websites and AI. I think that's the point. The point is, this is a reputable source. This is this one study that's true. They produce some kind of liquid from their, mammary glands, whatever it is. They produce some kind of liquid, but it's not good for the kid. I hope that you don't give your kid that kind of chest feeding and expect. I don't think they really think so. I think it's for people to think, oh, this is a reputable source, and then you have all these like fact checkers now will cite this and be like, oh, this is just as good. See this study here?
Yep.
And then you ask AI. AI is like, yeah, it's just as good because see that study here? And so I think that's why it's there. Obviously, it wasn't even peer reviewed. This is not a reputable source. This so basic and so common sense for you to believe that a man, even with hormone therapy, can now produce something that can feed a kid, just shows that we live in some kind of weird alternate reality. I don't know what else
Your
to say.
child will not be nourished, I can promise you, will not be nourished off of man's chest feeding.
Yeah, for that study, they'll say some men can actually get a full milk supply. They could just be exactly like a woman. Some men can achieve this.
There's no
some trans men. And so people actually believe that.
Yeah.
And then so that's why when you go, men can't be women, all these like liberals and leftists will be like, how dare you? You're so uneducated, blah, blah, blah. It's very sad. And now all these medical sites are citing this. And so if you go to like Baby Center or like, mothersmilk.com, whatever, babycenter.com, you will see them say this is true.
Yeah.
And so we think that just by saying it, we're being scientific, and I don't know, this is this is terrible. It's just terrible.
It's tough.
They'll just say things like, well, I mean, as long as the trans woman, I should say. Yeah. Do we say trans men?
I think you're supposed to say trans men because they're a man that's transitioning.
No, I think it's trans women. It's
Sorry,
what you transition into.
It's trans women. You're right. It's trans women. What about Trans Am?
What?
Trans Am. Isn't that a car?
Yes. Yes. It is a car.
Thank you.
Yeah. And there's also a trans radio.
What was that?
What is it? Is it a transistory? I don't know.
I don't even know what that is. But yeah, this is obviously not something that is natural. It's something that is not good for the baby. So please, 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 this is not to be desired. I don't even know how to end this section because it's so ridiculous. How do I even end it? Like, don't do it. Obviously, no one's going to do it. So how do I even end this section?
Yeah.
This is just how far our world has gone in the
Yeah.
sense of catering to the LGBTQ agenda to the place where now we're saying that a man's milk after taking drugs is equally as effective and is as good as a mother's milk or even formula.
Yeah, I think what you're feeding the kid may be dangerous too. I don't know. It might be just full of hormones.
Yeah.
Please don't do it. And please don't be fooled by AI, the internet, the fact checker. See, this is why it's rough. This is why it's rough because you ask AI, you do the Google search, you go to these websites, and they'll say, no, this is the Newman-Goldfarb protocol, and this works because you just got to give them progesterone, keep on giving them estrogen, and then they produce milk, they lactate. And you're like, no, they do not have the ability to do that. I'm so sorry. But yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what people honestly think you take enough of this hormone, you can develop glands and you can become something that you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to end the section, so I'll just say end section. Thank you, Pastor Eugene. I hope that was an interesting one. That was definitely an interesting one for me to read. So I hope that current event was interesting to our listeners. Thank you, Pastor Eugene. And we thank you for listening to this episode of the Dear Church podcast. We hope and pray that this has been a blessing in your ears. Fight the good fight, finish the race, keep the faith.
Peace.